Tonight on our show, we're going to talk to a man who owns so many hats. Jay Curlee's on the show on Content Pending, the show. You're looking for?
Need new wind guard.
Yeah. Probably just need to get new mics. No, all of it. Welcome to Content Pending the Show with Travis and Dylan. I am Travis.
I'm Dylan.
We're a podcast that takes place at Don's Depot in Austin, Texas. Beautiful Austin, Texas. We are a show that likes to talk about things that have happened over the week with interesting people and a good drink. This week we have a very interesting person. His name is Jay Curlee. And he is, you were a lot of things, like you said before we started the show, man with a lot of hats. But specifically, the way we met you is that you are producing and directing and shooting and interviewing, actually doing the entire thing for a documentary about our favorite bar that was aforementioned, Don's Depot. Jay Curlee, how's it going, man?
Hey, good to see you guys.
So glad you were able to come out and make it and talk to us about who you are. So let's start off there, though. Who are you? Tell us like an elevator pitch.
Yeah, okay. I was the 6-year-old kid with the baritone sax case walking home from school.
Okay.
For starters.
Okay.
Was there actually a sax in the case?
There was definitely a sax in the case. In 4th grade, they started me on clarinet, and I moved to tenor sax as fast as possible. And then I discovered that there was a bari sax, and so anyway, bigger was better for me in that situation. At least.
I played clarinet. I was not able to move. They wouldn't let us move to anything else.
Ooh, that's too bad.
I wanted saxophone, but
all kids want to play saxophone.
That class was full because everyone wanted to play fucking saxophone. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm glad someone made it.
Yeah. Well, did you go to public school?
Yeah, public school, yeah.
Yeah, well, I did too, but I was really lucky. And the other thing you made me think of when I'm thinking about my grade school is that I had my band teacher was a guy who had a 1950 Ford Coupe. And I don't know if you guys, you're so young, you wouldn't even know what they looked like.
We actually know our cars, surprisingly.
Yeah. But it looked kind of like that Studebaker in the Muppets. It had one of those things in the front that looked like a big jet engine turbine or whatever.
Yeah.
But the car had not been painted in 12 or 15 years. And it was gunmetal gray, but he was still the coolest guy because he let me play the bari.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I think
that's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. Yeah. So tell the people who might not know who you are, how we met, really. I kind of pinched in the idea that you're working on a documentary about Don's Depot, but I want to explore that a little bit further, like where it came from, the idea of it, and what you've found along the way.
Well, with you guys, I mean, there are a lot of different cultures here at Don's Depot. You guys have probably talked about this all the time. There are little pockets of. They're not cliques, really, because they're not exclusive.
Yeah.
They tend to be people that welcome you in, and they want to know who you are, and they're glad that you kind of want to know who they are, too. But every night in this place is a little bit different because of the different musical residencies and all. And so you guys were brought up to me by Tammy, who's been here 29 years, the bartender, and Michelle, and they just told me I had to come out and see you guys, and I thought, wow, it's pretty cool. I mean, to park yourselves out here and put on a podcast. Yeah. A live show. Yeah. It's cool.
And we're thankful every day for it, really.
Yeah. 6 years in running.
6 years in running.
We have something in common with this too, because I have been a guy who was basically even since I was a paper boy, I never looked at my job as a job. I mean, when I was a paper boy, I looked at it as a way to make money to buy beef jerky at the Circle K.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And then later,
it was $50 worth of weed. Yeah.
Well, no, that's right. You skipped ahead a couple chapters, but yeah, that's okay. There, yeah. That's okay. Yeah. I didn't really know about. I thought the weed turned you green, would turn you colors. When I was in high school, the people that I had been told smoke weed. I mean, I looked at them and they just didn't quite look right. They tended to be really kind of skinny, and their skin color looked a little different too. I just had this weird idea, and I had never even seen
Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness, yeah.
Yeah, Reefer Madness, yeah.
So that was a self-born thing? Not to distract too much, but was that a self-born thing, or was it like a grandparent who was telling you, like, Because I think we all grew up in the generation of grandparents or parents saying, like, no, don't eat the seeds because a fruit will grow inside you or watermelon will grow inside of you.
Yeah, don't jump in the pool after you
eat,
after
for 30 minutes because you'll get cramps or whatever.
I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona. Scottsdale, Arizona in 1960.
It's kind of a desolate, barren wasteland.
It was mostly cotton fields at that time. Huh. They had a snowbird paradise that was about 6-7 miles from my house. But people would come with bags of oranges in their car, and I can remember back where they had these coolers. The air conditioning at that time were these evaporative coolers that they hung on the outside of cars. A big cylinder that was on. It would hang out your window.
Oh, wow.
It would catch the air, and there was a little pump inside that would feed water up into this material, and it would blow cold air in your car. So I have all those images, but snowbirds are always loaded down with 2 giant bags, 80-pound bags of oranges in their car. So you know who they are when they come there. And so 10,000 people in Scottsdale, it wasn't anything like it was even 25 years ago.
Sure.
You were talking 1960s. But it was a conservative place to a extreme degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because of military bases, right?
Fort Huachuca is a long way off, and Yuma and all those. There was a National Guard place close to my house, but not so much military as it was just kind of cowboy country. And old school. Western pioneers that went out there.
Sure, yeah.
So it was kind of wild in that sense. My particular voting district in '64 went about 90-10 for Goldwater, and so it gives you an idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 10 that the other 10 were probably far right to Goldwater. They probably didn't vote for Ken or for who ran against Goldwater. It was Johnson.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They probably voted for the John Birch Society. There because that's the Republican Party of today, for instance, would fit with some of the stuff that they were into. So anyhow, it was a interesting thing to grow up in, an interesting culture to grow up in. I didn't see a black person until I was in high school.
Wow.
And then there were only 4.
Sure.
They were from one family. The father was a doctor. The mother was a PhD in English. The 4 kids were all the best musicians in the orchestra. One played harp, actually. One played violin. One was a clarinet player, and the other one I think was an oboe player.
So all the easy instruments.
Yeah, I mean, but boy, I'll tell you what, I sure didn't envy those folks.
Oh, I can imagine that must have been really difficult. Yeah.
No, they were not. They were just. They're the best people in the community, and then they just had freaking deck stacked against them anyway.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it was. I had great music teachers growing up, and so
that's fantastic.
That's why I ultimately became an artist.
So were you a musician for a long time?
Starting in 6th grade. Yeah.
Through how long?
Well, through today, actually.
Oh.
I've taken a couple of breaks. I had a bad marriage where music and golf were not part of the deal. Or I had to kind of.
Both are hobbies not really conducive to relationships. Yeah.
or making money.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
My father would call when I practiced tenor sax. My father would call it a Halloween horn. Not a terrific thing for my ego.
Right. Yeah. Not really a pat on the back. So how long were you in Scottsdale?
Till about 15 years there.
15.
I went through high school there. I played a lot of jazz in high school. I had a lot of music theory. I was lucky enough to have a big band director as a teacher.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was his student assistant for 2 years. And so part of what I got to do was I got to collate about 500 jazz band, big band arrangements.
This is while you're in high school?
Deal. While I was in high school.
That's amazing.
I also took care of his freshman band my senior year when he was drunk and he was taking a nap. Let me put it that way. I'm not going to mention him by name because he was actually a hero of mine. He, I've tried to emulate him in as many ways possible without falling asleep on the job and all that. But he was a wonderful guy and it was great experience for me to just have that opportunity. And
wow. No, that's fantastic.
so ultimately he spoiled me for for any real work. I always thought I was either going to be a composer or something like that, So I've been lucky.
Yeah. So after Scottsdale, where'd you go?
I went to Arizona State University because I was in love with the cheerleader.
Okay.
I had great other music scholarships, but it might, your audience might be surprised to hear this, but when you're 18 years old, you don't always make the right decisions.
That's crazy talk.
That's generational. And that never happened ever again.
I know. And I was a 5'10", 135-pound guy in a band uniform with a band letters sweater, and I had the
cheerleader,
the lovely cheerleader, and she proved to be crazy and dumped me 4 times, and
only 4 times.
Yeah. Almost ruined my life, but
at 18,
in a way,
sounds like normal.
yeah. But, no, she's still trying to get back with me, but she's unfortunately she's a follower of Franklin Graham, so that doesn't sit too well with me. So I don't know.
I'm gonna look up. I don't know that reference, but okay. So
he's the son of Billy Graham.
Oh yes, another one of these wonderful people. Mm-hmm. So after Arizona State, where'd you go?
What'd I do? Oh well, when she dumped me the 4th time, so there's continuity to this story actually.
Mm-hmm.
She dumped me the 3rd or 4th time. Actually, she dumped me the 4th time after I joined the Army. I got drafted. I got depressed, and I was all
influenced.
Well, yeah, I wasn't much of a student anyway. I mean,
You're
I
a
was
musician.
great at tests. I was not great at showing up for class. I was not great for doing my homework.
You're a creative type.
I seemed to get by when the test came, and then they had to sort of pass me. So I had a horrible freaking grade point. But anyway, about my junior year, she dumped me the 3rd time, and I got depressed and dropped a 4-hour class in American military history, and that was the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And so when I dropped that class, I dropped below the 12-hour limit for my draft deferment. I was number 14 in the draft. They had me within 2 weeks. I was shocked and amazed.
That's highly ironic too. That military history class.
Exactly. Yeah. It does. It is ironic. But in any case, so I was in deep trouble because it was Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I didn't like Vietnam. But the Vietnam War. But where I lived, and in my family at least, you did not
say no.
You did not, say no to government service.
Yeah.
You didn't run to Canada. You didn't do this just because you don't like the war.
Right.
So the unpopular wars had just, Korea was the first unpopular war, late in the war. But anyway, so I enlisted for the longest military occupational school I could get because, I'm drafted. I'm only going to have to do 1.5 years, but I'm going to have to do it in Vietnam. So if you enlisted at that point, they gave you the option to enlist for 3 years, and you could pick what your military occupational
Really? Huh.
Oh, well,
that's
clever.
When was this?
This was in 1972. So I chose Chinese language.
Okay.
And because I was terrible, I knew I was terrible at European languages, and I'd proven that in both college and in high school.
So go completely foreign.
Sure.
Sure. And it turns out, it's a tonal language. It was a little easier for me as a musician. I could listen to entire phrases and all that. So I managed to just barely pass the Army language aptitude test, and then I went off to Fort Ord for basic, and then Monterey for 46 weeks of Chinese language, Mandarin. So
and managed to avoid the entire war.
They stopped sending new guys to Vietnam 2 months before I graduated from Defense Language Institute, and so my plan worked out in my favor.
Yeah, geez.
Well done.
And
got free language.
No.
Do you remember any Mandarin?
Oh yeah,
Mandarin.
Yeah. I remember lots of things like Gong Kui, which is helmet, or Yuan Zidane, which is it's the atomic bomb. And my favorite, Shifuxing Tia Wang, which is a concertina wire. So
all the critical things you need in combat.
Yeah.
So anyway,
let's take a first break.
So the first thing they do is start messing with my head at this place.
Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Yeah.
Content pending, segment 2. with Travis and Dylan. So we're still hanging out with Jay Curlee. We're still talking about his life. He just avoided the Vietnam War and learned Mandarin. What'd you do for that?
Well, I'm in Monterey, California.
In 74. Yeah.
In 74.
Mm-hmm. So you're setting a party.
And even though a couple of dudes in the Arizona State Marching Band had introduced me to a little bit of weed, then, because they said, they told me, Curlee, you got to get hit, man. When you're really uptight, and so anyway. But that was the one time. The one thing about the Army is that there were a lot of people around there that were self-medicating, let us say, and so that was sort of an eye opener for me. Not in the way it's been for Willie Nelson, but it's but it has been a help. But upon getting, when I was in the service, even in language school, and then ultimately where I went, I got back into music again by playing in pit orchestras and playing stuff like Oklahoma and West Side Story and things like this, which were all kind of, that's inside me because of I was a music major in college, so I was pretty conversant with that stuff.
Yeah, but if you can teach jazz at age 17,
yeah, you can.
I think you can handle Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So they send me off to Hawaii, and that's something. Have you guys ever been to Hawaii for any length of time?
Yeah.
Man, they flew me in on a C-5A where you're facing backwards, too. You imagine the world's biggest airplane. At least it used to be. The Russians built a bigger one, but it doesn't really fly. It's kind of like a spruce goose, I think, for them.
Yeah.
But anyway, they face you backwards. You land in this place, and you get off the airplane, and bang, the plumeria, the smell of the plumeria.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, you go to the ocean, and you stick your toe in the ocean, and it's like 78 degrees in the ocean.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's turquoise and all this.
And that's every single day.
Yeah.
And there are all these lovely wahine. And
which island?
Oahu, because I went to Schofield Barracks. Which is seen in the movie From Here to Eternity. They do a lot of the stuff on up there at Schofield.
But it's near the Dole pineapple plant.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And they still actually, it's near Dole pineapple fields.
The field, yeah.
Probably halfway between the fields and the plant. But anyway, it just proved to be this amazing experience for me because
it's Hawaii.
My unit didn't know what to do with me. I mean, do you guys really care about this? Do you want me to talk about? I'll talk about my military experience.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Okay, so I get there. I fly in on a July night, and I walk outside the airplane. I smell the plumeria, and I see all these beautiful cumulus clouds, something like this. Only their trade winds are blowing them a little faster.
Of course,
it's 78 degrees with this cool trade wind breeze, and I'm thinking, fuck, this is unbelievable. So I get on a bus, and they take me up to the 25th Military Intelligence Company at Schofield Barracks, 25th Infantry Division. And this is where they shot a lot of From Here to Eternity, Ernest Borgnine and Burt Lancaster, and I don't know if it was Donna Reed in that one, but whatever. Anyway,
the famous scene on the beach.
the Eternity Beach, which is another. I've been down there too. Maybe that's for later. But that was a very fond memory of mine, as much as I can recall, at least. But
how kind of your brain to remember some of it. Yeah.
I had a guy. I get there to the division. I get there to the post, and there was a warrant officer, a crazy-looking. He's about 6'5" warrant officer, big guy, red hair, tightly cropped red hair. And he's smoking a cigarette between his ring finger and his thumb.
Okay.
He's holding the cigarette between his ring finger and thumb, and he's looking at me. Odd. And he's taking a toke every now and then, and he's looking at me over his cigarette, and he looks like he's sizing me up. I'm going, what have I gotten myself into? And little did I know, because anyway, he was a Pole. We had a lot of Eastern European guys in my unit. Anyway, but he was a Pole. So anyhow, he hands me a sheet and sends me to a barracks, to a room, a private room, in a barracks building. and it's a typical Army bed there. And I flip the sheet out and I tuck it in at one end. I get to the other end and the sheet doesn't line up. It doesn't work. One end is I can't tuck that end in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I pull the sheet out from that end and I flip it again and I tuck it in. The guy had given me a trapezoidal sheet. So the first thing they do is start messing with my head at this place. And it turns out there were a bunch of Eastern European guys in the unit, mostly warrant officers. I was an E4, I think, when I got there. And anyway, they were all guys that had fought the battle against Russians in Eastern Europe. And one of my guys, my first sergeant, was a guy who fought Germans. He was a Pole who shot. He fought and shot Germans and Russians, and he ended up being sort of my mentor at this place.
Cool.
For whatever reason, I was an iconic, iconoclastic character, and so he sold me his '65 3-speed Rambler American, which he had kept in tip-top shape. He sold me that car for $300, and he got me off post housing, and he took me under his wing because he was what I didn't know my job was going to be was working in a POW camp in the mock POW camp up in Wahiwa. And so they slotted me into an interrogator position. I was a linguist. They didn't know what else to do with me, so they also had my record, my testing record, and apparently the Army decided I would be an interrogator. It ended up working out for me in the end, but so ended up we ran soldiers through the POW camp, and we I was a political officer, quote unquote, in the camp, and I learned my gig from
your training
from this crazy guy Poplowski, this Pole who just had this thick accent, and he could scare the fuck out of anybody. and he just looked at any moment he could turn on you and just twist your neck off too. Because this guy, he had a damn grenade. Part of his history is that somebody threw a grenade into his window, and he went to throw it out, a German grenade, and the damn thing exploded and blew out most of his neck. He survived that. They were able to put his neck back together, but I could imagine his tongue is hanging out from down here someplace.
Yeah.
And anyway, but that guy took me under his wing. There were any number of other sadistic characters in that unit that
you got the good one.
Only one was a sadistic guy. No, I got the good one because he had seen everything, and I don't know, he protected me. He
had a sense of humor too, yeah.
Oh, and he had a wonderful sense of humor. I love that guy to this day. I love him.
What a fun scheme.
Yeah,
because literally the sheet. I mean that's fucking wonderful. I can imagine, like, especially before you figure out that he's fucking with you, just
right,
like thinking like, oh no, he's fucking with me. You
yeah,
know? It's not. This isn't fun. This is like he's trying to get me in trouble for some reason, and then like it turns into like a
right. I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
What the hell? Yeah. 22 years old. What the hell did I know?
Yeah.
But I did finally ascertain when I threw the sheet on the floor that it was a trapezoid, and so it was a freaking stunt. But those guys, they humored me, and honestly, we didn't do much work. We didn't have a whole lot of training to do with those soldiers. We spent most of our time as amazing slackers. We'd go down we had a golf course on the post itself and one just outside it. And so we would usually repair to the clubhouse and drink $2 a pitcher beer, and then come back to the unit and take a nap, and and then we'd put on
rinse repeat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, we would go, the other little custom we had in my unit with a couple of my guys, we got moved out of off post to 1350 Ala Moana down there on the beach in Waikiki, or just off of Ala Moana Beach. And we would put on Castro mustaches and put big cigars in our faces and drive home like that. Just to mess. So we were not exactly my service. Everybody thanks me for my service, and I thank them for my service. I still, it just turned out great for me. And so anyway.
So how long were you there?
I was there for a couple, 2.5 years. Picked up running, started doing marathons, met my wife-to-be, who I went with for a while, and then I dumped her, and then married the wrong woman for 14 years, and then got back with her again, and we got 25 going now. So
very nice.
So we're
Very
good.
nice.
But getting to Hawaii was just an incredible experience. 40 years living there.
You were there for 40 years.
42 years.
Why'd you move here?
Everybody says that, but you know.
And
Imagine,
you do too,
I know it's expensive, but
imagine.
other
I
than that-
mean, way back when. I mean, my fantasy was there was a James Mason movie or something where he goes out for a newspaper, tells his wife he's going out for a newspaper, and then he's in Hawaii, and he doesn't come back. And I always thought that just was a cool fantasy. And you know, for us, both my wife Susan and I, there's just no question. Hawaii is just an unbelievable place to live.
Yeah.
And I lived on the beach, actually. After I got out of the high rise, where we experimented with growing things on our balcony to a great extent until the landlord came and threw them in our bathtub,
Sure.
the plants in our bathtub. But anyway, I lived literally on the beach in Lanikai for about, in a small apartment.
That's nice.
For about, 5 or 6 years. So I kind of started my life backwards. I succeeded very early. And then I ultimately became a filmmaker, and that, has led to the poor, sad sack that sits before you today. Making movies about dive bars and,
someone has to.
Yeah.
Using everything you've learned all the way through. So appreciation
Right.
of music, your ability to interrogate or interview,
Right. Exactly.
a little bit of patience,
Yeah.
a whole lot of patience, and a good sense of humor. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Wow.
That's your Slumdog Millionaire lifestyle that bring you to Don's Depot.
That's right.
Yeah. So you were there for 42 years, and then you came here for work then to find more work, or
Well, that's what I told my wife.
yeah.
And the thing is, I had been to Don's before, and so I was kind of in love with Don's. I was in love with the whole music scene here.
Of course.
In my television career, I made commercials for a living. Stan Freberg was my hero, and once again, I don't know how many people in the audience are going to know who Stan Freberg was. Look him up on the internet. He was a genius ad man who became a comedian who did send-ups of a lot of Hollywood shows.
Okay.
Actually, I just saw a documentary on him like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yes.
Really, I would
It was a
love
small
to.
like, YouTube thing. Yeah.
I would love to see it because, the guy was my hero. I memorized all his comedy albums when I was a kid. And then for me to just fall into a TV job, I'm sitting in a...
So you're in Honolulu, assuming,
Yeah.
working for the TV station there?
Yeah, I got discharged from the Army, and then I got this wonderful thing called unemployment, which I got $97 a week for it was like 50 weeks, something like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
The rates have not changed much since then.
Yeah. And it's the only time I've been unemployed in my life. But I got a phone call that changed my life. Which sounds like a good way to go to break and come back.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and take a break.
The man is a filmmaker.
Yes. Yeah.
He knows his cues.
Knows your beats. Yeah. Let's take a break. It's a good idea. We'll come back.
So my advice to everybody is to develop an alter ego.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome back to the show, everybody. Segment 3 of Content Bending the Show.
Yeah, the hot tub 3.
Yeah, we're ready for a hot tub.
Yeah. Well,
Continue where you left off, Jay.
all right. Well, see, I was in the Army, and ultimately, I didn't want to be in there forever. I had only really signed up for 3 years. I accidentally crashed a Jeep on a remote bridge out in a training facility. End up flying out of the Jeep and hurt myself, so they threw me in the hospital for a few extra months. But I don't think your viewers are interested in my injuries.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, you never know. I don't think I'm going to actually talk about all of them, but I know that they kept on at Tripler Army Medical Center.
I was going to ask you, you're a tripler. Okay, yeah.
I was a tripler. Yeah. And they kept running the female doctors and extra nurses in and holding up the sheet and showing them what happened to me, because some of my parts became somewhat distorted and colorful, let us say.
Worthy of study.
Yeah.
Yes.
Worthy of their laughter, at least. So anyway, once they threw me out of there, I got my discharge, and I moved in with some bachelor friends of mine, one of whom was the old high school buddy of my executive officer. And these guys, their whole mission in life was to see how many Pan Am and United stewardesses that they could attract into their lair. And
we're talking like 75-ish,
yes,
74?
Yes, we're talking pre-AIDS is what we're talking.
Right.
I hate to be a bummer, but that's really what it was. And, But, you know, say it like it is, because otherwise...
that kind of milestone's important, though. Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And so I'm sitting in the hot tub with just a lovely lady and drinking banana daiquiris, frozen banana daiquiris. I guess that's the only way they go is frozen. Anyway,
I like them on the rocks.
Yeah, you know,
with a full chunky banana.
You know,
Yeah. Another wafer.
But you know, this is the way she liked it, and I was happy with it too. Oh, we were living in this house. We lived together, and we name our houses crazy things like the EO Valley. I can't even remember now. It's anyhow. Never mind that.
Sure.
Cut that. Edit.
Nope.
Anyway, we bought this house, and we didn't buy it. My landlord bought it. The guy who was a real estate guy in our group of three, he bought the house. But we all dug the pool. We literally dug the pool in the backyard with shovels. Okay, before the gunite guy came and before the rebar guys came.
Right.
All right. Our whole goal was to create a water volleyball pool that to play naked water volleyball in.
Of course.
Because
so far, you have everything makes sense.
Yeah. Anything to make that shovel keep going. Yeah.
Right.
23, 24 years old, this all makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Our landlord and friend, Ron
Burgundy, let's go with that.
Yeah, Burgundy, exactly.
Right.
He was a remarkable man in himself. He thought he was Hugh Hefner. He thought he was a middle class Hugh Hefner. He didn't have all the money yet,
right.
But he was going to build to scale at least. So the pool had the lava rock waterfall coming into it with a little cove underneath it, little place underneath it where you can get under the waterfall and kind of be away from it. Yeah. And who knows what might go on under there. And so
that's the point. Yeah.
So anyhow, the reason I was on unemployment for a year, honestly, was because the pool had been built, and I had no incentive to go leave the property at all, except to go across the street to get some beer or some,
daiquiri into Rome.
Right. So anyway, I get the phone call, and he says the guy, they're going to fire a cameraman because he's called in sick, and everybody knows he's down at Breakers. He's surfing. So he's a surfer guy that was calling in sick all the time.
Okay.
And so he said, "Rob, I don't know anything about running a television camera. I don't know the first thing about that." And he says to me, "It doesn't matter. You're a great bullshitter. He's desperate. Get on down here." and Rob was just a cameraman too at that point. He wasn't the guy I had to go interview with. So I interviewed with this guy. His name was Cyril Akashi, and he was a sort of a no-nonsense. He was a no-nonsense Japanese engineer.
Sure.
And
redundant, yes.
They're kind of wound a little tight, and he didn't really care about my exciting story in life and how I was successful at everything else I'd ever done in my life, and I don't see how hard this could be.
Yeah.
Okay, but what happened was I got down there kind of late. It was 45 minutes of the newscast, and he's looking at me and then looking over my shoulder. And then looking at me and looking over my shoulder. There's a clock over my shoulder, and all he's worried about is his 6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
And so I ended up out there with a woman who had become my wife, running camera on the news. And
this is your interview.
Yeah. No, I went from interview. I went from half-hour interview to I'm
running the camera.
I'm out there because he needed somebody.
He was just that desperate.
It was a 5-camera newscast.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to run the camera that shoots the graphics. This is before they had Chiron, and they would type the graphics on the screen. You used to shoot a black card with white ink on it. So I was taught how to do kind of old school printing like that, and then go out there, and I just was a mess. I was terrible at it, and ultimately, but I got through it, somehow I got through it without getting fired, mainly because the badass manager in the place didn't come in contact with me all that much. But he's anyway. I got through that and running camera, learn how to run camera, and ultimately they made me a director because I wasn't even the 10th best cameraman in the shop, but I did have a way with. I had a bullshit capability that was necessary in other parts of the building, let's say.
Yep. Okay.
So anyway, ended up making a couple thousand commercials and a couple hundred programs. And
that's great.
Geez, I just had an amazing time in Hawaii because it's out there in the middle of the Pacific. It's 2,500 miles from anywhere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to do everything there. You can't call L.A. every time you want to do a good job on something. You can't call Tokyo every time. And so we did all the stuff those guys did. And it was a tremendous education for me for 20 years. And then I walked away from them, became an independent filmmaker, after 20 years. Yeah. Just because I don't really like working for people that much. The television environment is a very corporate one.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's like radio, only you get paid a little more than radio, but it's just about as bad as radio because every 5 minutes somebody's coming in and buying up your station. Mm-hmm. So I directed kid shows. I did all kinds of professional wrestling. Directed Andre the Giant.
Cool.
It was just a kick. So mine,
What was your favorite of any things that you actually had to film?
I got to direct baseball at KHNL, the NBC affiliate. I got to direct baseball for a couple of years. Yeah. The University of Hawaii. We had a contract. We did 135 events a year. Our station did 135 live sports events a year. Mm-hmm. We were probably the most experienced outfit outside of some ESPN or Northwest Mobile crews, things like that. And we did the same broadcast they did.
That's one season of baseball, yeah?
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. No. We only had 30 baseball games, I think. 12 football games.
Well, we both like baseball. We also like to dig on the fact that it feels like the season takes about 3 years.
Yeah. Well, college doesn't, but yeah.
Right.
No, but there's nothing like it. I mean, when football's a linear game, anybody could direct that. I mean, there's just not that much going on. You just have it's just way easy to surround the field with cameras and you can hardly make a mistake. Volleyball is a different thing. We didn't do hockey. Hockey's a different thing too. But baseball, you get bases loaded, somebody throws a wild pitch, or bases loaded, somebody hits a ball at the gap. You got to, ready one take, ready two takes. So stand by.
How many cameras would you have at a?
We had 7.
Game? Wow.
We had 7.
And you were directing the whole thing?
I'm in the truck. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
If we're not running too long, I have a story about that. It's actually it's something that's lasted 30 years in Hawaii.
Go for it.
Yeah. I got when I went from my first TV station to my second one. I went from the leading television station, number 1 for 14 years. I went to the number 5 station that was they barely could get on the air. They barely had cameras and shit.
Fox affiliate or
Well, no, it was an independent. I went from a CBS affiliate to an independent. And
why, if you don't mind me asking?
Because it wasn't fun anymore. At the station I was at, I mean, my whole problem is I never wanted to work. And so if I'm not having fun, then what am I, what am I spending my time on? And this really must annoy your audience out there to hear somebody talk about this. But I mean,
literally everyone will agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's annoying for other people possibly how lucky I have been.
Sure.
But the one thing though that I always do is I always show up for work, albeit late sometimes when I showed up for your show tonight. But
you're making up for it in time.
I generally don't do that. But anyhow, I directed my first baseball game. I had just left the other station. I was still under my contract with them. I was still working for them, only on vacation I had 4 days left in my deal with the other station. But the new station that had no gear at all and just pieced together this thing suddenly got the Western Athletic Conference Championship baseball games. There was a playoff. There were 2 games scheduled that night. The first game, if University of Hawaii won, there would be a second game, and then we'd play the second game. And so I agreed to come and direct the broadcast, never having directed a baseball broadcast in my life, but I was the only guy that those people over there knew who could even possibly do it, because I had directed some live shows. I directed some beauty pageants and some music shows and things like that. So anyway, I get out there. And I don't want to be noticed. I don't want to be found out. And we don't have a press box. We don't have a truck. We got a bunch of machines that are out there in plain view out in the stadium that we're running the show from. And so anyway, I hired the best prosthetic makeup artist I knew, and I had him make me up into a fictional character.
Oh my gosh. What?
And I had him put a big fucking nose on me and a big wart on me here.
Huh. Okay.
And I got through the game. I directed the game and everything, and I probably had a couple beers handy for me. We're probably at a desk, not unlike this one. You know, we directed the whole game from a desk, much like this one. And for your audience, it's a remarkable thing I just said. Anyway, but you know, and I directed it as my alter ego was a guy named Esteban Foonman.
Sure.
It was a name that came from some friend of mine who that was his alias, and I took it over. And so anyway, so fast forward, I get through the game and everything. Oh, except for one thing, I go back to the bathroom. I was going to say lua, which is bathroom in Hawaiian.
Sure, yeah.
Lua. Remember that, everybody. Where's the lua? Anyway, I go back there and I'm standing at the urinal, and the guy walks up next to me and says, "Hey Jay, how'd the game go?" So I didn't fool anybody. And
Tony Clifton, you were not.
But they did, yeah. That's right. That's exactly right. Frickin' Tony Clifton. What an amazing. My general manager was like Tony Clifton.
Oh, that's not
what he was like.
That's not a good thing.
He used to say things. In sales meetings, he would say things like, "All right, everybody. If you don't start selling more, everybody's going to be fired. But we're spring loaded in the fuck position." He would say this in front of women. You know.
Times have changed in the corporate world.
Yeah. No, he wouldn't make it now, but he's back there. He's still working the game back there.
That's great.
But anyway, so I directed. I also got after this all happened, I got to direct a whole 2 seasons. And because they ended up hiring somebody who was experienced at directing baseball and football games and volleyball games and all that. And so I lost that gig and went back into making commercials for them. But in any case, the years later, I mean, the sportscaster, the dean of sportscasting in Hawaii would always tell stories about Esteban Foonman, and he would just tell all these bizarre stories about how my wife was the heir to the flax fortune in Argentina and stuff like that. And I come to the ball game with my kid, and
he owns Molokai.
I come to the ball game with my kid, and the cameras are on me and everything, and I put on my earpiece to listen to the broadcast, and he's telling some bullshit story about Esteban Foonman. He did that for 30 years. 30 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's got to feel good in some way, yeah.
Oh, no, it felt great. I had opposite team coaches coming up to me and said, "Are you Esteban Foonman? Are you the great director?
The mysterious
great director who's been, spends half your time in Panama and the other half time in Cuba and all this?" I said, "Well, yes, I am.
I know him. Yeah.
Yeah." But
when someone asks you if you're Esteban,
right,
you say yes.
You say yes. Yeah.
So they ended up. I leave the station and they finally lose their contract after 25 years. They think they're going to lose their sports contract with the University of Hawaii. And so they call me up. And they called me up for the last game they thought that they were going to play because they wanted to have Esteban Foonman direct direct the 6th and 7th inning. They didn't want me to direct the 8th and 9th. But still, 6th and 7th isn't bad.
The non-important ones.
Right. No, well, it's still good, but it's not the first guy, and it's not the
Sure.
So I got to go do that, and they wrote it all up in the paper.
Put the prosthetics back on? Or?
Yeah, it's just this. So my advice to everybody is to develop an alter ego. Find something you want to do that's just crazy, and do it under another name, and see if anybody goes for it. I mean, it's it's just the kind of way things
that's
go
great.
in our world.
Yeah.
The world of Esteban Foonman.
The late great Esteban Foonman.
Yeah, I think he's still around.
Well, Let's go ahead and take one more break, and we'll come back with do a shot and get a little bit more from Jay. Bye.
It's okay. I don't mind. It's too piercing, man. It's too piercing.
Too piercing. You got a shot over there.
I do.
Let's go. Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey.
Segment 4 with Travis and Dylan, still talking to Jay Curlee about his life, and also convincing him that it's interesting, so we can continue to talk to you. One of the main reasons why we want to have you on the show, aside from we had no idea you'd be this interesting, would be to talk to you about your relationship with Dons.
Talk to my wife about that.
Sure.
It was her idea, actually.
Yeah.
She said, "You're totally not interesting at all. Don't have him on the show.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time, fellas." Yeah.
No, she was the first person I contacted before I talked to Michelle. So,
Yeah.
It's about how. So you mentioned that you had been to Don's before you decided to do this documentary about it.
Right.
When was the first? When did you come to Don's for the first time?
Okay. Well, we'll take a little bit of a step back from that.
Okay.
And I was in a marriage where there was no golf or music. I might have mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got back with the woman that I was with when I first got to Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly music and golf and fun and travel were suddenly on the table.
Right.
And so we went to New Orleans Jazz Festival, and we just saw these incredible acts that we'd never heard of before. We avoided the Acura stage. We avoided the big stars, and we're just blown away year after year at Jazz Fest. And then Katrina came along. We went and saw Jazz Fest after that. Yeah. It locked itself into my heart. And so,
you were at Frenchman Street instead of the actual fest, right?
Well, both. We did both.
Okay.
We did Frenchman Street after the fest.
Yeah.
And so it just was a eye-opening experience. Got me back into saxophone lessons again.
Cool.
And got me thinking about doing music with my video and film career. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing I enjoyed more than shooting from the wings of a music venue. And what I mean by that is, instead of from the audience point of view, up on stage from the wings, where you can watch the musicians interact with each other and cue each other and everything. And since I was a musician, I really wanted to be the guy up there on the stage, but I didn't have the chops yet. The next best thing is to get up there and shoot that stuff. Yeah. So the Jazz Fest got me hip to a cruise called the Delbert McClinton Sandy Beaches Cruise. Okay. Marcia Ball, Texas royalty, turned us on to that, and so we went on that cruise a couple years, and I finally convinced Wendy and Delbert. Wendy is Delbert McClinton's wife, to let me take a camera on the cruise. And 2 years after that, I talked them into letting me make a feature documentary, a music documentary about them. So we did that. We took 5 cameras, a couple audio packages on the cruise, and sounds like Harry's cranking it up again there. That's okay. I don't mind. It's too piercing, man. It's too piercing.
Too piercing.
Anyway, that's an inside joke for you guys out there. But
I'm definitely sharing that with the crowd.
Okay. So, all right. So anyhow, they ended up letting us make a movie about him. And so we about 12 years ago, we made our first independent documentary feature about Delbert McClinton. And spent a couple $250,000. It took us 10 years to get it back, but we made a pretty cool product that is almost out of print now. There are very few copies left. There are not many, but there are a few. You can look it up. Rocking the Boat. Anyway, a musical conversation and journey. Rocking the Boat. Anyway, there's only 150 copies left, and that's God's truth, because our music license runs out, and so unless I want to spend a lot more money, that's all that there's going to be. So in any case, in the course of doing the cruise and doing the movie, we met people, the Cannons, Jim and Linda Cannon from here in Austin, and a couple other people that knew of Don's Depot, and they took me here probably 10 years ago, and then I took 5 years off because I had to go back and try to make up my money from making Rockin' the Boat. And so anyway, 5 years ago, I had wanted to move to Austin because of the music. Yeah. I'm not a person from Austin who now sees how it's degraded because of this or because of that, because there's so many buildings that have gone up and all that. But for me, if I've got the Saxon Pub, Don's Depot, the Continental Club, 1-to-1, and at that time Strange Brew, I thought it would be a cool move.
Yep.
Because after 42 years in Hawaii, I was kind of ready for another adventure. My kids had all grown up and moved to the mainland, and Ed had kids himself, so now I got grandkids on the East Coast. So I thought, well, if I move out here, it'll be easier for them to come and see me.
Yep.
I didn't want to chase them all over the place because they're in their prime earning years. And they could get a transfer to Portland, Oregon at any second, right?
Yeah.
Or to Kuwait, in one case for mine. And anyway, it's just so we moved out here because we had a boatload of friends here.
Yeah.
So that's why we moved here. And I remember that the first time I walked into Don's, it was Chris Gage and Christine Albert. Albert and Gage were playing.
That's a good first impression for Don's.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! They played a Jesse Winchester song. They played a song of their own, and I looked around the place, and it's got cobwebs, and they haven't painted the place in 20 years.
There's the old carpet too. Yeah.
The carpet. Somebody said during the course of the interview said there's something in the air here. I said, there's something in the carpet.
Something in the carpet.
Yeah. And it's probably both.
Yeah.
At this point in time. But anyhow,
Christmas lights are still up.
I had learned that Antones, they've done a film about Antones. They're doing one about the Saxon Pub. They're doing one about the Broken Spoke. Or they did one about the Broken Spoke, and I just proposed to Michelle at the bar. Well, what if I made a little film about Don's Depot? Take a couple months to do it. Cost $15,000. We'll do 8 songs. We'll do 7 story pods. It'll all be great.
Sure.
We'll at least tell the basic story of this place. And I had basically not come on any of the other nights except Monday, so I might have done it once or twice, but it. In any case, I didn't understand at the time that it's a much deeper project, that there are people that literally rely on this place to make their lives work. Honestly, we got people like Shelley, the chick magnet dancer,
Damn straight.
Yep.
89 years old, dancing with every woman in the house. If they don't, if he doesn't ask them, they ask him. And he's just one example. My other friends, the Cannons, they're in their mid-70s. They've been together for nearly 60 years. She was jailbait when he got with her. I mean, he was 21, and I think she was like 15 or 16 or something. And they have made it work their whole lives, and they're some of the greatest dancers here you'll ever see. So, bottom line with this place, it's got the 5 major residencies that play here. Don plays twice a week. The other guys play once, except for Saturdays. The music is just, it's perfect. I mean, I've been a musician and a music lover my whole life. I haven't been into any clubs that have better music than this place.
Yeah.
And it's also the hardest place to get a gig. I mean, all my other Austin music friends say, well, can you get me in there? Can you get me in there somehow? No, the last guy that got in was Chris Gage 21 years ago.
Yeah, he's still the rookie. Yeah.
Sometimes,
Frank Cavett, maybe.
I've only seen, the only time I ever see anyone guest, basically just people who've been drinking here for 15 years who just happen to be also talented at things. More specifically, people who worked at the Hula Hut who have been drinking here with my generation of people who came in and appreciate it so much. So, yeah, that's funny. Chris Gage was the last new guy.
I think so, yeah. And it's remarkable music. If your audience doesn't know, Chris Gage is the guitar player for Jerry Jeff Walker, who may be a person, he's an older person.
You might have heard of him. Yeah.
You might have heard of him.
He's a very interesting man.
Yes, he is.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, everybody thinks he's from Texas, and yet he's from upstate New York. He wrote Mr. Bojangles, which Sammy Davis Jr. made a giant hit out of, and Jerry Jeff hasn't done too bad on that one either, I think. Yeah. But I mean, he wrote that. He wrote that when he's like 21 years old.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about Don's too, is that it's a place where young and old people get together and they mingle and they dance and they're very comfortable together. I can't think of any place I've been to before in Texas, at least, that's like that. Yep. I had an old bar back in Honolulu that was a little bit like this.
Yep.
called Anna Bananas. It was a great place, but really, I don't know of any place like this, which is where the most important thing when you walk in the door is how you feel, and how welcoming it is, and it just struck me, and so I'm trying to tell the story. I'm not sure it's tellable, to tell you the truth, but I'm trying to tell it.
Sure, yeah. Wound up being more complicated than you thought it was going to be,
Yeah. The music is going to be easy in a way. I mean, I've got so many songs to choose from, and we're going to use the music as part of the narrative, and the lyrics as part of the narrative, and the interviews, and we've done 50 of them so far.
Wow.
We haven't done the musicians yet. We saved them for last. We've basically done the customers.
Yeah.
And so we got people who have been coming here for 46 years.
Yeah.
That have been sitting at the same table for 46 years.
Yeah.
We got Don, who has been playing behind the piano for 46 years before he owned the business. And in places like this, there just aren't any places like this anymore in Austin. I don't know. Somebody show me, but I don't know.
Were you able to get a good backstory of the actual physical property of Don's that used to be an actual railroad station?
Yeah.
Great. Yes.
Yeah.
I can finally stop being the one telling the story all the time.
That's true. He's been a nerd for Don's for quite some time, and Well,
Did you hear the story about how the wife, when the railroad cars arrived, how the wife told the husband, Bob Ogden, that the cars were in?
No, I haven't heard that. No.
There's a golf course down here. I guess Lake Austin has a golf course close by here. She drove her suicide door Continental, 63 Lincoln Continental.
Go on.
Like the car that Kennedy was killed in. So imagine that, only white, driving down the cart path at a golf course where she's tracking down her husband to tell him that the rail cars are here for
Because he's
Don's
on the
Depot.
golf course.
She drove onto the golf course. She's straddling it with this suicide Lincoln down the cart path, and then Bob Ogden pretends to not see her,
of course,
or recognize
so I'm playing
her, know
golf,
who
honey.
she is.
right.
But that's the Pullman car and the caboose and the other thing there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. There goes Michelle. Anyway, you got to come to Michelle's. I mean, not Michelle's. You got to come to Don's, everybody. Might as well be Michelle's.
Michelle and Tammy's.
Michelle's here. It's Michelle's and Tammy's.
Oh,
yeah.
it's a very exciting thing. It's a very exciting documentary in general. I'd love to see how it plays out because, like you mentioned before, there are cliques here, but they're not siloed.
Right.
And it's still friendly for as old and different as it is, or whatever. But I was just going to cheers to Don's.
Oh, yeah,
but
cheers. Yeah, absolutely.
James like, I want this damn tequila. Shut up.
What kind of tequila are you drinking there? What is that?
Oh, it's just
not.
DP to lemon.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just sweetened
Lemon
vodka.
flavored vodka.
Yeah. No calories.
But, I mean, as far as, wrapping up on the project, if that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting balance between the interviews and the musical performances, and we're going to try to make it flow organically, a word that I tend to hate sometimes. But it's you got to be ready to improvise, and I'm probably the guy to do it because I do play saxophone. But you can't develop an idea about what exactly it's going to be until you've shot everything.
Yeah.
And then once you've shot everything, we have a method going on. We transcribed everything. We got a script panel that's all going to read it and highlight all the pieces that they think need to be done. And that panel is going to include people who have been here for 27 years.
Try to find
and stuff like
sure,
that.
sure.
So
Mike Z. Yeah.
who knows if anybody outside Fifth Street and beyond is going to want to watch this movie? But honestly, I don't care. I'm gonna make the movie that entertains me.
Yeah.
And
Does Tammy get final edit?
no, nobody. I get final edit, but.
Have you told her that?
If she, if Tammy or Michelle told me something, if anybody I love tells me something that's got to go because it's embarrassing to someone, then I'm not gonna play it.
Sure.
I'm just not gonna do it because
make sure you have that conversation because they know things.
Oh, I'm sure he knows some things now too. So.
They know all these things that they get me to interview these people who have all these great stories, and I get them in, and I'm a trained interrogator.
Yeah.
People tell me
and
their
known
truth.
bullshitter.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'd like to think I'm more of an
Your admission, sir.
more of a listener than a but
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, but in any case, people tell me their truth, and the truth that they're telling me here is that this place is a vital part of their lives. And I never really thought beyond my 20s how something like that could be possible.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Because back in my 20s, I had Anna Bananas back in Hawaii, which is across the street from the Mo'ili softball diamond, where I played for 20 years in the Ad League. So it was conveniently located to that and the university. We had legislators, we had cops, we had bikers, we had the whole thing, hippies. We had the whole thing covered. We got it covered here at Don's too. Only it's world class music as well, so it's the music and the musicians that are interacting specifically with people in the crowd. It's a wild thing, and it's a wild thing also to watch people when they first come in here. I love to watch the newbies when they come in because they usually somebody introduces themselves and say, "Who are you?" And I'm Jay and all this and is this your first time? Oh yeah. Well, you should sit right over here, I say, and you just anything you need, the staff, or just ask me whatever you want. That's kind of the way you're treated here. People, when you come in, it's you could look at it a different way. You could say you're vetting people. You could say that you're eliminating assholes.
Sure.
You could say that, and that's a part of it too.
Yeah, of course.
Because when you go by Big Ed at the door, you don't want to be rude to Michelle or Tammy in this place because there are any number of people who will rise to the occasion and quietly escort you out.
Quietly or otherwise.
I think it's mostly quietly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, you're mostly on the inside. The patio, it can get a little more rocky.
Yeah.
There have been a few occasions where people have jumped over railings to make a point about you should not be here anymore.
You should definitely don't say that to Tammy. Yeah. Some people say they jump over cars, but they're also drinking, so they don't really remember the story as best. But the point still remains: definitely don't fuck with Tammy and Michelle.
Yeah,
I mean, and also keep this sacred.
Yeah.
We don't have daddy issues. Get your fights outside.
Yes.
And respect this place because this is holy ground for us.
It really is.
That's the reason why we started doing the show here. It wasn't just because it was convenient or easy or they'd let us. This was a big part of our lives for a really long time.
We were hanging out here years before we even tried this project, and they were kind enough to let us do it.
Yeah.
And now we've become kind of part of the place.
And we've gone to other places, we've recorded other places, but it just never felt the same.
Yeah.
Like the rest of it was like, oh, they're letting us do this, and it's fun to go other places, but the energy is just so. It's I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been shooting in here for 4 years before this. I've brought a camera in this place, and I share it with permission on Facebook or on YouTube, what have you. But it's a special place. We want to preserve it, and we want to preserve it in time because the truth is it's sitting on a $3 or $4 million piece of property, and there's no economic argument for this place being here. It's only for the largesse of Steve Ogden. Yeah. Really, why there's not D9 Caterpillars bulldozing the place, and so we got to get the history down at least while we have the chance.
While it's hot, yeah.
And
ironically, I was looking into this recently. Does Don's classify it as a historical landmark?
It sure should,
and it's close because the physical property probably does because of its historical significance. Railroad,
sure, yeah.
But it's only been here for 40 years, so it doesn't. It's a weird transplant.
46 years. Don't cheat us here.
Sorry.
We got
round up to 50 at least.
And honestly, there are people.
But the building's like almost 100 years old. Yeah. Parts of it, anyway.
I know there are people in government here who they haven't stepped up yet to help support the movie, but it's still early maybe. But this kind of place, you just can't. You can only shoot so many bullets in the computer before it stops running.
Right.
And even though this is not a great sanctuary for lots of musicians, I mean, they can come and sit in here. It's a great sanctuary and supporting mechanism for all these cats who are here. Yeah. Because they are just so damn good. I just defy anybody to have a better time listening to music in Austin. And I've tried out all of the other places, and so whatever,
Yeah.
But I just, I don't have to do anything anymore. I don't have to take on projects, and this one is probably it's grown from the $15,000 3-day tour a la Gilligan's Island. It's grown to something way, way bigger than that. And
you were expecting that, were you?
Yeah. We'll need more coconuts.
Well, I just thought I could get in and get out, and everybody be happy to have a little movie about Don's.
Sure.
It just didn't turn out to be that way because the place is an institution. So now I got a tiger by the fucking tail. So let's see what happens.
You do, yeah.
So where can people donate?
Oh, we're on GoFundMe. We have a GoFundMe page. It's called Don's Depot the Movie.
Okay.
That's the best place probably to go. You could probably also track me down somehow, jcurlee.com, JAYCURLEE.com. But it's funny how ill-prepared I was for that question, isn't it? But I never like to ask for money. Yeah, that's the truth. I've always hated to ask for money. I've never done a GoFundMe before.
Yeah.
And so, and just to tell your audience kind of a cool thing, I mean, I was leaving a South by Southwest screening about transgender people in the military.
Yeah.
And I was there as a guest of the director, and I come up into the lobby and I see a phone message from somebody I'd never heard of before. And so I hit the button, and it's from Tito's Vodka, who just gave us $10,000 to shoot more of the movie. And,
awesome.
And so I think,
they do serve Tito's at Don's Depot.
They do serve Tito's, and it's an excellent vodka. My favorite, to be sure. But it just was remarkable.
It's an Austin original, just like Don's.
Yeah.
And maybe to close out the idea, at least, that I lived in Hawaii for 42 years, and Hawaii is all about aloha. And I got to tell you that I think Austin has got a tremendous amount of aloha. Yeah. And so, I'm really glad I made the move. My wife is a little less glad just because she was 48 years in Hawaii. So anyway, but getting to do a project like this for this community is a great honor, actually. And so we'll just have to see if we can raise the money. We need an airline, a beer, a bank, a car company, something like that. We need a few guys like that, somebody to write about $150,000 check, and we're going.
Land Rover Jaguar is located directly across Don's Depot.
Is it now? Wow, look at that.
Well, what do you know?
So if you're in the market for a new or used fine European luxury automobile, go to Don's Depot.
That's right.
Look across the street.
I would. I'd go to Don's Depot, and then I'd go across the street and buy myself a Land Rover. That's right.
Jay,
a Jaguar.
It was so much fun to talk to you.
Absolutely,
hear about your stories.
A lot of fun to talk to you guys. I hope I didn't bore the shit out of you audience.
No,
they're
going to
anyway.
They're going to enjoy the fuck out of this. My mom is going to love this.
Okay.
No, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and exploring this. And I'm just so excited to see how the documentary works out. Especially, I mean, and without spending too much time saying it, it is wonderful. It is wonderful that it wound up being complicated. I mean, probably not for you. But for us, it's
the truth.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Yeah, because it's real. And
we live here.
It's dense. Yeah. We see a lot of weird stuff, and I'm glad that someone's actually remembering it.
It's dense, and guess what? So are we.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect for us.
Yeah. The way I look at Don's personally is when I started coming here, I had no gray hair.
Oh yeah, sure.
When I stop coming here, I will have all gray hair.
Yeah,
just like the people who are inside right now. Or who are coming here tonight to dance.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's going to be me in 30 or 40.
Yeah. Especially for Nash,
10 years. 10 years. Who's getting who? 10 years. That'd be me.
Let's go and round this out. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's just so much fun. Anytime you just feel like having some drinks and just bullshitting with the old stories, please come by. Anytime.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind.
Dylan, thanks for helping me run the show.
Of course.
If you like the show, you want to know more about the show, you can go to contentpending.com. It's contentpending.com.
You almost said donsdepot.com, didn't you?
Hi, it was almost a drunk cast. It was almost a Don's and drunk cast. So Content Pending. You can find us on Facebook at Content Pending the Show. You can find us on Twitter, Content Pending the Show. You can also find us everywhere just by looking for Content Pending the Show. We're on iTunes. We're in the Stitcher store because you have to. We're also on Google Play or any place where you can get a podcast. If you have a smart speaker, you can ask your smart speaker, hey, I would like to listen to this podcast, please. And they'll say podcast, Content Pending the Show. And it'll play. You can just do whatever you like in your kitchen or in your bathroom. It's kind of fun. It's
a fucking miracle.
Yeah, it's still really neat. Like,
Yeah.
still the generation of being like, oh, God, this little tube will do that for me? That's cool. We have a phone number. It's 802-359-7468. That's 802-359-SHOT. That is our shot line. You can call and leave a message, or you can just tell us what you think. You can text it with a question, or a voicemail with a question or a statement or something you don't like about us, and we will respond in kind. Also, questions at contentpending.com. We are on Instagram, too, but also it's just contentpending.com all the way spelled out, DOTCOM. I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to sue that girl to get content pinning. No, but we're all over we're everywhere. So come find us. Please let us know. Especially go to iTunes and tell us what you think about our new format, our new show, and the people that we have, because we would very much like for iTunes, which is the gold standard for podcasts, to give us a little love. But
how about this? If you've been to Don's Depot, share your story through the shot line.
I'd love to do something to help this podcast, which I think is a very cool thing. And
thank you.
My thought is that for the first 2 listeners who donate $50, I'll send you an autographed copy of Rocking the Boat, the DVD. It's the DVD. It's
that's very nice.
Delbert McClinton, Marsha Ball, Rodney Crowell, a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Awesome.
Call them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Email them.
Yeah.
Do whatever you have to do.
Call 802-359-7468. Anyway, I'm Travis. I love you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Content pending.